I worked a lot of night shifts when I was younger, different jobs, different cities, but the feeling was always the same. You start noticing things when most people are asleep. Small things, things that do not quite add up. I am going to tell you about 5 times that happened to me. 5 times when I knew something was wrong, but I could not prove it. I still think about these moments. I probably always will. The first story takes place when I was 23 years old. I had just moved to a new city for what I thought would be a fresh start. I needed work immediately, so I took the first job I could find. It was third shift at a 24-hour gas station on the edge of town, the kind of place that sits between 2 highways, far enough from anything else that you only get customers every hour or so. Most of them were truckers, people passing through. I never saw the same face twice. My shift started at 11 p.m. and ended at 7 a.m. The pay was minimum wage plus an extra $1.50 per hour for the overnight differential. It was not much, but I needed it. I did not mind the hours. I have always been more comfortable at night. The store was small. 4 aisles, 2 coolers, a coffee station, and a register behind bulletproof glass. There was a stockroom in the back with a bathroom and a small office where the manager kept the safe and the schedule. I was usually alone. Sometimes another employee named Marcus would overlap with me for an hour at the start of my shift. But most nights I was by myself from midnight until morning. The building itself was old. It had been a gas station for decades, probably since the 1970s. The fluorescent lights hummed constantly. The floor was scuffed linoleum that had been mopped so many times it had lost whatever pattern it once had. The walls were covered with faded advertisements for cigarettes and lottery tickets. The bathroom was cramped and smelled like industrial cleaner. The whole place had that feeling of being stuck in time, like nothing ever really changed there. The first few weeks were uneventful. I restocked shelves, cleaned the coffee station, checked IDs for cigarettes and beer. I read a lot. I brought books and sat behind the counter when there were no customers. The quiet did not bother me. I actually preferred it. Around 2 a.m., most nights a trucker would stop in for coffee or energy drinks. Around 4 a.m., a couple of construction workers would grab breakfast sandwiches from the hot case. Around 5:30, a handful of early commuters would get gas and coffee on their way to work. That was the routine. Predictable. Safe. Then one night, about a month into the job, a man came in just after midnight. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, and he wore a dark blue jacket and jeans. His hair was short and neat, clean-shaven. He looked like he could have been anyone. 35, maybe 40 years old. He did not look threatening. He did not look like anything in particular. That was what I remember most, how ordinary he seemed. He walked to the back of the store, grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, and brought it to the counter. He paid in cash. Exact change. $2.37. He counted it out carefully. He did not say anything except thank you. I said you are welcome. He left. I did not think much of it at the time, just another customer. I went back to my book. 2 nights later, he came in again. Same time, just after midnight, maybe 12:03. Same jacket, same walk to the back of the store, same bottle of water. He paid in cash again. Exact change. $2.37. He said thank you. I said you are welcome. He left. I noticed it that time, but only barely. It is a 24-hour gas station. People have routines. Maybe he worked nearby. Maybe he was passing through on the same route every few days. Night shift workers, truckers, they all have patterns. It did not seem strange enough to worry about. But then he came in the next night. And the night after that. And the night after that. Always just after midnight. Never earlier, never later. Always between 12:02 and 12:05. Always the same bottle of water. Always exact change. Always the same thank you. I started paying more attention. I noticed he never looked at me directly. His eyes would glance at the counter, at the register, at the ceiling, but never at my face. I noticed his hands were very still when he set the money down. No fidgeting, no nervous movements, no phone in his hand. He would walk in, get the water, pay, and leave. The whole interaction took maybe 90 seconds. After the 7th night in a row, I mentioned it to Marcus during the overlap. I said, "Hey, this guy has been coming in every single night at the same time. Same thing every time." Marcus shrugged. He was in his 40s, had worked overnight shifts for years. He said, "People are weird, man. Do not overthink it." He said as long as the guy was not causing trouble, it did not matter. He told me about a woman who used to come in every night at 3 a.m. and buy a single banana. Every single night for 2 years. A banana. Then one day she just stopped coming. Marcus said you see all kinds on night shift. That made sense to me. I let it go. But the man kept coming. Every single night. No exceptions. I started to feel uneasy about it. Not scared exactly. Just aware. Hyper-aware. I would see headlights pull into the parking lot at 12:05 a.m., and I would know it was him. I started watching the door before he even walked in. I found myself tensing up around midnight, waiting. One night I decided to try something. When he came to the counter, I smiled and said, "Saw you last night." He paused. Just for a second. Then he said, "Yeah." That was it. Just, yeah. No smile. No acknowledgement beyond the word. He paid and left. The next night I tried again. I said, "You must really like that brand of water." He looked at the bottle in his hand. He stared at it for a moment. Then he said, "It is fine." Then he paid and left. His voice was flat. No emotion. No friendliness, but no hostility either. Just empty. Like he was reading lines from a script he had memorized but did not understand. I started dreading midnight. I would watch the clock. 11:58, 11:59, 12 a.m. And then, like clockwork, headlights. I told myself I was being paranoid. The guy was not doing anything wrong. He was not threatening me. He was not even talking to me beyond basic pleasantries. He was just buying water. But something about the repetition made my skin crawl. It felt rehearsed. It felt intentional. Like he was following a plan. Like every visit was practice for something. One night, about 3 weeks into this routine, he came in at the usual time. But this time, he did not go to the cooler. He walked straight to the counter. He did not have anything in his hands. He just stood there looking at the lottery ticket display behind me. I said, "Can I help you?" He did not answer right away. He just stared at the wall. I could see his reflection in the bulletproof glass. His face was blank. After maybe 10 seconds, he said, "Do you work here every night?" I felt my stomach drop. I did not know why. It was a normal question. People ask me that sometimes, but the way he asked it, the flat tone, the lack of eye contact, it made me feel trapped. I said most nights. He nodded slowly. Then he said, "What time do you leave?" I lied. I said, "It depends. Sometimes 6, sometimes 8. Completely random. He did not respond. He just stood there for another few seconds, staring at the lottery tickets. Then he turned and walked out. He did not buy anything. He just left. I locked the door after him. I was not supposed to lock the door. It was a 24-hour gas station. That was the whole point. But I locked it anyway. I stood behind the counter and watched the parking lot. His car was still there, a dark sedan, maybe a Honda or a Toyota. I could not see the make or model from inside. He sat in the driver's seat for a long time. I watched the clock. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. He just sat there, not on his phone, not doing anything, just sitting. Then finally, he started the engine and drove away. I called my manager the next morning. His name was Dale. He was a tired man in his 50s who had been managing gas stations for 30 years. I told him what happened. I told him about the man coming in every night, about the questions. Dale sighed. He sounded annoyed. He said, "Did he threaten you?" I said, "No." He said, "Did he damage anything?" I said, "No." He said then, "I do not know what you want me to do." He said, "If the guy comes back and actually does something, call the police. Until then, just keep doing your job." He said I could not lock the door unless there was an immediate threat. Company policy. The man did not come back that night, or the next night. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe I had scared him off by locking the door. Maybe he realized I was paying attention. Maybe he found another gas station. I started to relax. I went 2 nights without seeing him, then 3, then 4. By the 5th night, I had almost convinced myself it was over. Then, 5 days later, he came back. Same time, same bottle of water, same exact change. He did not say anything. He did not ask any questions. He did not even look at me. He just paid and left. And he kept coming, every single night, for 2 more months. I started documenting it. I kept a notebook behind the counter. I wrote down the date, the time, and any details I noticed. What he was wearing, whether he said anything, how long he stayed in the parking lot afterward. Some nights he left immediately. Other nights he sat in his car for 5 or 10 minutes. Once he sat there for almost half an hour. I wrote it all down. I did not know what I was going to do with the information. I just felt like I needed to keep track. Like if something happened, I would need proof. I also started taking precautions. I kept my phone in my pocket, unlocked and ready to call 911. I made sure I knew where the panic button was under the counter. I started parking my car in a different spot every night, closer to the entrance. I told a friend where I worked and asked her to text me every night around 1 a.m. to make sure I was okay. She thought I was being paranoid, but she did it anyway. Nothing else happened. He just kept coming. Same routine, same water, same exact change. I quit that job in early December. I told Dale I found something closer to home. That was not true. I just could not stand it anymore. The man never did anything else. He never threatened me. He never followed me. He never even spoke to me again after that one night. But I could not shake the feeling that he was waiting for something, that he was learning my routine the same way I had learned his. That one night, something would be different. That one night, he would not leave. I still do not know what he wanted. I still do not know if I was right to be afraid. But I think about him sometimes. I think about how he knew exactly when I would be alone. I think about how he asked what time I left. I think about how he sat in his car, watching, and I wonder what would have happened if I had told him the truth. I wonder what would have happened if I had not locked that door. I wonder if he moved on to someone else, another gas station, another clerk, another person working alone at night. This is the next story. I was 26 when this happened. I had been working as a rideshare driver for about 8 months. I did it part-time to make extra money. My day job did not pay enough to cover rent and student loans, so I would log on around 9 or 10 p.m. and drive until 2 or 3 in the morning. Friday and Saturday nights were the busiest. Drunk people leaving bars, people getting off late shifts, couples going home from dates. The app would ping, I would pick them up, I would drop them off. It was easy work. Mindless. I liked that I did not have to talk much if I did not want to. Most riders were fine. A little chatty, sometimes rude, but harmless. I had a few weird experiences. A guy who insisted I drive him to 3 different ATMs because he kept forgetting his PIN. A woman who cried the entire ride and would not tell me why. A group of college kids who tried to smoke weed in my back seat and got mad when I told them to put it out. A man who spent the entire ride explaining his cryptocurrency investment strategy. But nothing that ever made me feel unsafe. I kept my doors locked until I confirmed the rider's name. I checked the back seat before driving away. I followed the app's safety tips. I kept a small canister of pepper spray in the center console, just in case. I thought I was being careful. The city I was driving in was mid-sized, maybe 300,000 people. Big enough to stay busy, small enough that you started to recognize certain areas. I learned which neighborhoods tipped well. I learned which bars let out at what times. I learned which streets to avoid because of construction or bad lighting. I got comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. Then I picked up a woman named Jessica. The ride request came in around 11:30 p.m. on a Friday. Pickup location was a residential street about 15 minutes from where I was. Drop-off was across town, maybe a 25-minute drive. The fare looked fine. Estimated earnings were around $18. I accepted. When I pulled up to the address, I saw her standing on the sidewalk. She was in her early 30s, I think. She wore a black coat and jeans. She had long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked normal. Tired, maybe. She had a small purse over her shoulder. She opened the back door and said, "Are you driving for Jessica?" I said yes. She got in. I confirmed the drop-off address on my phone. She said that is correct. I started driving. She did not say anything for the first few minutes. I did not either. I had music playing quietly, some playlist the app recommended, indie rock or something like that. She sat in the back seat on the passenger side. I could see her in the rearview mirror. She was looking out the window. Her hands were folded in her lap. She seemed calm. Normal. Then, maybe 5 minutes into the ride, she said, "I really appreciate this." I said no problem. She said I have been waiting a long time. I glanced at the app. It said I had arrived 2 minutes after the request. That was pretty fast. I said sorry if I kept you waiting. She said no, not tonight, just in general. I have been waiting. I did not know what to say to that, so I did not say anything. I kept driving. She went quiet again. A few minutes later, she said, "You drive this route a lot, do not you?" I said I drive all over. She said, "But you are out here most weekends." I felt a small prick of unease. I said, "I guess so." She said, "I have seen you before." That should have been my first warning. I looked at her in the mirror. I said, "Have you ridden with me before?" She said, "No, not in the car, but I have seen you." I said, "Where?" She did not answer. She just smiled a little and looked back out the window. I tried to brush it off. Maybe she recognized me from somewhere. Maybe we had been at the same gas station or grocery store. It is a small enough city. It happens. I had seen other drivers at coffee shops and recognized them from their profile pictures, but something about the way she said it made me uncomfortable. I turned the music up slightly just to fill the silence. We were about halfway to her destination when she said, "What is your name?" I said, "The app shows my name." She said, "I know, but I want to hear you say it." I hesitated. Then I told her. She repeated it slowly, like she was testing how it sounded, like she was trying to memorize it. Then she said, "That is a nice name. Do you live near here?" I lied. I said, "No, I live on the other side of town." She said, "That is not true." I felt my chest tighten. I said, "Excuse me." She said, "You live in the apartments off Monroe Street, the ones with the blue balconies." I did not respond. I did not know how she knew that. My address was not visible to riders. The app does not show that information. I had never told anyone where I lived. I kept my eyes on the road. My hands were gripping the wheel too tightly. I could feel my heart beating faster. She said, "I have seen your car there, parked in the same spot, usually around 4 or 5 in the morning. You must get home late." I said, "I think you have me confused with someone else." She said, "No, I do not." She said, "You have a small dent on the back bumper, right side, and a parking sticker from the apartment complex." She was right. I did have a small dent. I had backed into a pole a few months earlier, and I did have a parking sticker. I felt cold. I said, "How do you know that?" She did not answer. She just looked out the window. I wanted to pull over. I wanted to tell her to get out. But we were on a highway. There was nowhere to stop safely. And part of me was afraid of what she would do if I tried. She knew where I lived. She knew my car. She had been watching me, so I kept driving. I counted the minutes. 12 left, then 10, then 8, then 5. She did not say anything else until we were almost at her destination. Then she said, "I am glad we finally got to meet." I did not respond. I pulled up to the address. It was an apartment complex. Older buildings. 2 stories. Dimly lit parking lot. A few cars scattered around. She opened the door and stepped out. Before she closed it, she leaned back in and said, "See you around." I said nothing. She shut the door. I watched her walk toward one of the buildings. She did not look back. She just walked calmly, like nothing had happened, like we had just had a normal conversation. I locked the doors immediately and drove away as fast as I could without speeding. I sat in a parking lot a few miles away and tried to calm down. My hands were shaking. I told myself she was just messing with me. Maybe she was drunk. Maybe she looked me up somehow. Maybe it was a coincidence. But I could not explain how she knew where I lived. I could not explain how she knew my car or my schedule. The app did not show that information. My social media was private. I did not have my address listed anywhere public. I reported the ride to the app. There was a button for reporting safety issues. I clicked it. I said the rider made me uncomfortable and I did not want to be matched with her again. I wrote a brief description of what happened. The app sent an automated response thanking me for the feedback. It said they take safety seriously and would review my report. That was it. No follow-up. No phone call. Just an automated message. I kept driving that night. I needed the money. I picked up 3 more rides. All of them were fine, normal. A couple going home from dinner, a guy leaving a bar, a woman finishing a late shift at a hospital. By the time I got home, it was almost 4 in the morning. I parked in my usual spot, the one with the blue balconies overhead. I sat in the car for a minute, looking around the parking lot. I did not see anything unusual. No one sitting in a car. No one standing in the shadows. I went inside. I locked the door behind me. I checked the locks twice. I checked the windows. I closed all the blinds. The next weekend I was driving again. Saturday night, around midnight, I got a ride request. Pickup location was the same apartment complex where I had dropped off Jessica. My stomach turned. I declined the request. Another one came in 30 seconds later. Same pickup location, same name. Jessica. I declined again, then another, and another. 5 requests in a row, all from the same location, all with the same name. I went offline. I sat in a grocery store parking lot with my hazards on, trying to decide what to do. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? A rider knew where I lived. A rider requested me multiple times. It did not sound like a crime. It sounded like paranoia. It sounded like I was overreacting. The police would probably tell me to block her on the app and move on. I did not drive for 2 weeks after that. When I finally logged back on, I stayed far away from that part of town. I would decline any request that came from that area. I never got another request from that address. I never saw Jessica again. But for months afterward, I would check my rearview mirror obsessively. I would scan parking lots before getting out of my car. I would look over my shoulder when I walked to my apartment. I started parking in a different spot every night, even though it meant a longer walk. I covered my parking sticker with tape so no one could see which complex I lived in. I still do rideshare sometimes, not as much. And I never pick up riders from residential streets anymore. Only businesses. Only places with cameras and people around. I tell myself I overreacted, that she was just a strange person trying to get under my skin, that maybe she saw my car around the neighborhood and made a lucky guess. But I do not really believe that. I think she was watching me. I think she had been watching me for a while. I think she knew my routine. I think she knew exactly when I would be driving, where I would be, when I would be home. And I think the ride was not a coincidence. I think she requested me specifically. I think she wanted me to know she was watching. I do not know what she wanted. I am glad I never found out. The next story happened a few years earlier, when I was still in college. I worked part-time at a hotel. It was a mid-range chain hotel near the airport, 3 floors, maybe 80 rooms. The kind of place business travelers stay when they do not want to spend too much money. My job was front desk, and I worked the overnight shift Thursday through Sunday, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It paid decently for a student job, $12 an hour, and the work was not difficult. I checked people in, answered phone calls, printed receipts, restocked the breakfast area. Most nights I did homework or watched videos on my phone. It was boring, but I did not mind boring. Boring was safe. The hotel had a small lobby with a couple of chairs and a fake fireplace, the kind with electric flames that did not produce any heat. The front desk was directly across from the main entrance. Behind me was the office, the breakfast room, and a hallway that led to the first-floor guest rooms. The second and third floors were accessible by elevator or stairs at the far end of the lobby. There were security cameras in the parking lot and in the hallways, but I do not think anyone ever checked them unless something went wrong. I worked alone. Management did not see the point in having 2 people overnight. The hotel was rarely full, and most guests were asleep by midnight. If I needed help, I was supposed to call the manager on duty, but they were usually at home asleep and would not answer unless it was an emergency. I felt safe enough. The doors locked automatically at midnight. After that, guests had to use their key cards to get in. Anyone else had to knock, and I could see them through the glass before deciding whether to let them in. Most nights, nothing happened. A guest would come down for a toothbrush or extra towels. Someone would call the desk because the Wi-Fi was not working. Around 3 or 4 in the morning, a few early flights would check out. That was it. I would spend most of my shift reading textbooks or working on essays, but there was one guest who made me uncomfortable. I first saw him on a Thursday night, about 2 months into the job. He checked in around midnight. I remember because he knocked on the glass door, and I had to unlock it for him. He was in his 50s, I think. Average height, maybe 5'10". Thinning hair. He wore khaki pants and a button-down shirt. He looked like a businessman. Generic. Forgettable. He had a small rolling suitcase and a leather briefcase. When I let him in, he walked straight to the desk and said, "I have a reservation." I asked for his ID and credit card. He handed them over without saying anything else. His name was Richard. Last name something generic, Smith or Johnson or Williams. I do not remember exactly. I checked him in, made him a key card, and told him his room number, 214, second floor. He asked if the breakfast started at 6 a.m. I said yes. He said thank you and walked toward the elevator. I did not think anything of it. He seemed polite, normal. Just another tired business traveler. The next night, Friday, he came down to the lobby around 1 a.m. I was restocking coffee cups in the breakfast area, getting things ready for the morning. I heard the elevator doors open, and when I looked up, he was standing near the front desk. He was not holding anything. He was just standing there, wearing the same khaki pants and button-down shirt. I walked over and said, "Can I help you?" He said, "I cannot sleep." I said, "I am sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do?" He said no. Then he sat down in one of the lobby chairs. I went back behind the desk. I tried to focus on my homework. I was taking an online quiz for my psychology class, but I kept glancing at him. He was just sitting there, staring at the fake fireplace, not reading, not on his phone. Just sitting. His hands were resting on the armrests. His posture was perfectly straight. After about 20 minutes, he stood up, walked back to the elevator, and went upstairs. I did not see him again that night. Saturday night, the same thing happened. He came down around 1:15 a.m. He did not say anything this time. He just sat in the same chair. Same blank stare at the fireplace. Same 20 minutes. Then he left, I thought it was odd, but not threatening. Maybe he had insomnia. Maybe he did not like being alone in his room. People do strange things when they travel. Maybe he found the lobby comforting. Maybe the fake fireplace helped him relax. Sunday night he came down again. 1:20 a.m., same routine. But this time, when he sat down, he turned his chair slightly so he was facing the desk. Facing me. He did not say anything. He just watched me. I pretended not to notice. I kept my eyes on my computer screen, but I could feel him staring. My skin prickled. I thought about saying something, but I did not know what to say. "Excuse me, can you stop looking at me?" That seemed rude. And he was a guest. He was not doing anything wrong. He was just sitting in the lobby. After 20 minutes, he got up and left. Monday was my night off, but when I came back on Thursday, I checked the guest list. He was still there. Same room. 214. He had extended his stay. Most business travelers do not stay at airport hotels for more than a couple of nights. A week was unusual. 2 weeks was very unusual. I felt uneasy, but I told myself he probably had a long project in the area. Maybe he was waiting for an apartment to become available. Maybe his company was paying for it. It was not my business. Thursday night, he came down at 1:30 a.m. Same chair, same stare. But this time, he spoke. He said, "You go to school." I looked up. I said, "Yes." He said, "What are you studying?" I hesitated. Then I said, "General studies." I did not want to tell him the truth. I did not want to tell him anything real about myself. He nodded. He said, "That is good. Education is important." Then he went quiet again. He sat there for 20 minutes and left. Friday night, he asked me where I went to school. I lied again. I named a college in another city, about an hour away. He said, "That is far. Do you commute?" I said, "No, I live nearby." He said, "That must be convenient." Then silence. 20 minutes. He left. Saturday night, he asked me what time my shift ended. I lied. I said it varies. Sometimes I work until 7, sometimes until 8. Depends on who is coming in for the morning shift. He said, "You are here every time I come down. You must work late." I said sometimes. He did not say anything else. 20 minutes. He left. Looking back, that moment stands out. He was keeping track of when I was there. He was testing me, seeing if my answers were consistent. I did not realize it at the time. I just thought he was lonely or bored. I did not see the pattern. Sunday night, he did not come down at his usual time. I kept watching the elevator. 1:30 came and went. 2 a.m. Nothing. I started to relax. Maybe he had finally managed to sleep. Maybe he had checked out. Maybe his project was finished. I went back to my homework. Then, at 2:45 a.m., I heard a knock on the glass door. I looked up. He was standing outside, in the parking lot. I had not heard him leave the building. I had not seen him in the lobby. He must have gone out the side door, the one near the pool that was supposed to be locked after 10 p.m. He was just standing there, looking at me through the glass. He did not wave. He did not smile. He just stood there, staring. I did not move. I did not know what to do. The doors were locked. He could not get in without a key card, but he was not trying to get in. He was just watching me. His face was blank, expressionless. He was wearing a dark jacket. I could not see his hands. After a minute, he walked away. Slowly. He did not hurry. He just turned and walked across the parking lot. I watched him. He got into a car. A dark SUV. It was parked far from the entrance, in a corner of the lot where the lights did not reach very well. He sat in the driver's seat. The engine did not start. He just sat there. I could see his silhouette. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? A guest stood outside and looked at me. A guest is sitting in his car. It did not sound like a crime. It did not sound like enough. I called my manager instead. Her name was Patricia. I dialed her cell phone. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I did not leave a message. What would I even say? I dialed again. Voicemail. I gave up. I locked myself in the back office and watched the security monitor. The feed was grainy and black and white, but I could see the parking lot. He sat in his car for over an hour, just sitting. Then at 4 a.m. he got out, walked back into the hotel using his key card, and went upstairs. I did not leave the office until my shift ended. When the morning clerk arrived at 7, I told her what happened. Her name was Brenda. She was in her 60s and had worked at the hotel for years. She said that's creepy. She said she would mention it to Patricia. I do not know if she ever did. I never heard anything about it. I checked the guest list the next Thursday. He had checked out. I never saw him again, but for weeks afterward I kept expecting him to come back. I would hear the elevator and tense up. I would see a car in the parking lot and freeze. I started keeping my phone in my hand at all times, ready to call for help. I started writing down license plate numbers of cars that stayed in the lot for too long. I quit that job 2 months later. I told them I needed to focus on school. That was partly true. But mostly, I just could not stand the idea of being alone in that lobby anymore. I could not stop thinking about him standing outside the glass, watching me. I could not stop wondering what he was waiting for, why he sat in his car for an hour, what he would have done if the door had not been locked. I wish I had trusted my instincts. I wish I had said something sooner. I wish I had asked him to leave, or called the police, or at least written down his license plate number. But I did not. I just waited for him to go away. And he did. But I still do not know why he was there. I still do not know what he wanted. I hope I never find out. This next story still bothers me. I was 28 when this happened. I had been working in a warehouse for about a year. It was a distribution center for an online retailer, one of the big ones. We packed and shipped orders, clothes, electronics, books, toys, everything. My shift was 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., Monday through Friday. The warehouse was huge, the size of several football fields. High ceilings, rows and rows of shelves, concrete floors. There were maybe 30 people on my shift, but the building was big enough that you could go hours without seeing anyone. We all wore headsets connected to a computer system that told us what to pick, where to go, how many items to grab. It was repetitive work, but the pay was decent. $17 an hour plus overtime, and the benefits were good. Health insurance, paid time off, retirement matching. The warehouse was divided into zones. Each zone had different products. I usually worked in Zone C, which was home goods. Towels, sheets, kitchen supplies, small appliances, that kind of thing. The zones were labeled with big letters hanging from the ceiling. The aisles were numbered. The shelves were labeled with coordinates. A 7, B12, C3. Everything was designed for efficiency. You did not have to think. You just followed the instructions in your headset. Most nights I worked alone in my zone. I would push a cart down the aisles, scan items with a handheld device, load them into bins, and push the cart to the packing station. Then I would go back and start again, over and over. I listened to music or podcasts through my headset when the system was not giving me instructions. It was mindless, isolating, but I did not mind. I liked not having to interact with people. I liked being able to just zone out and work. Then I started noticing someone else in my zone. I would be walking down an aisle and I would see a figure at the far end, just standing there. It was too far away to see details, just a silhouette. Dark blue shirt, dark pants, the same uniform I was wearing. I assumed it was another worker, maybe lost or looking for something. But when I got closer, they would be gone. I would reach the end of the aisle and there would be no one there. No cart. No equipment. No sign anyone had been there at all. It happened 3 or 4 times over the course of a week. Always in my peripheral vision. always too far away to see clearly. I mentioned it to my supervisor during a break. His name was Kenny. He was a heavy-set man in his 40s who always seemed tired. I said, I think someone keeps wandering into Zone C. He checked the computer. He said no one else is assigned there tonight. He said I was probably seeing someone from Zone B or Zone D passing through. That made sense. The zones were not separated by walls, just empty space. It was easy to see into the neighboring areas. But then I started noticing the figure more often, not just at the end of aisles. Sometimes I would see it standing between shelves. Sometimes I would catch a glimpse of it in the next row over, moving parallel to me. I would stop and listen. I would hear my own footsteps, my own breathing, the hum of the ventilation system. But no other footsteps, no other sounds, no cartwheels, no scanner beeping. Nothing. One night I decided to follow it. I was walking down aisle 14 when I saw the figure in aisle 15. I turned down aisle 15 as fast as I could without running. The figure was gone. But I saw it again in aisle 16. I turned again. Gone. I kept following. Aisle 17. Aisle 18. Every time I turned, the figure was one aisle ahead. Always the same distance away, maybe 100 feet, always just out of reach. I started walking faster. The figure moved faster too. I started jogging. The figure disappeared. I stopped in aisle 20. My heart was pounding. I realized I was breathing hard. I told myself I was seeing things. I was tired. I had been working too many shifts. I had pulled a double the weekend before. The lighting in the warehouse was fluorescent and uneven. Shadows moved strangely. It was easy to imagine things that were not there. But then I heard something. A faint scraping sound, like something being dragged across concrete, metal on concrete. I turned around. The aisle behind me was empty. The sound stopped. I waited. Nothing. I stood there for a full minute, listening. Silence. I went back to work. The next night, the figure was there again. This time, it was closer. I could see it more clearly. It was a person. Tall, maybe 6 feet, wearing the same uniform as me. Dark blue shirt, dark pants, reflective vest. But I could not see their face. The lighting was too dim in that part of the warehouse. Some of the overhead lights were burned out. I stopped walking. The figure stopped too. We stood there, maybe 50 feet apart, just looking at each other. Then the figure turned and walked away. Its movements were stiff, mechanical. I did not follow. I started dreading my shifts. I would scan my zone constantly, looking for the figure. Some nights I would not see it at all. Other nights I would see it multiple times. It was never doing anything. Just standing, watching, moving when I moved, stopping when I stopped, like it was mirroring me. I reported it to Kenny again. I said, I think someone is following me. He said, what do you mean? I said, there is someone in my zone who is not supposed to be there. He checked the system again. He pulled up the assignments on his tablet. He said no one else is clocked into Zone C. He said if I saw someone, they were probably just cutting through to get to another zone. He said if it kept happening, I should try to get their name and report them for being off task. But I could not get close enough to see a name tag, and I did not want to. Something about the figure felt wrong. The way it moved, the way it stopped exactly when I stopped, the way it never made any noise, no footsteps, no breathing, nothing. Then one night, about 3 weeks into this, I saw the figure standing at the end of aisle 9. I was at the other end of the same aisle. We were facing each other. The figure did not move. I did not move. We stood there for a long time, maybe 2 minutes. Maybe more. The distance between us felt enormous. Then the figure raised one hand. Slowly, like it was waving. I felt my stomach drop. I turned and walked away as fast as I could without running. I went straight to the break room. I sat down at one of the plastic tables and tried to calm myself. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was just another worker messing with me, trying to scare me. It was a stupid prank. That was all. But I could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I did not go back to Zone C that night. I told Kenny I was not feeling well. He sighed and reassigned me to the packing station. I spent the rest of my shift putting items into boxes, scanning them, taping them shut, slapping shipping labels on them. I did not see the figure again. The next night, I requested a different zone. Kenny said fine. He moved me to Zone F, which was electronics. It was on the other side of the warehouse, completely different area, a 5-minute walk from Zone C. I felt safer there. I did not see the figure for several nights. I started to think it was over, that whoever had been messing with me had gotten bored and moved on. Then about a week later, I was walking down an aisle in Zone F. I glanced to my left. The figure was there, in the next aisle over, standing perfectly still, watching me. It had followed me. I dropped my scanner. I heard it clatter on the concrete. I did not pick it up. I just walked away. I went to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. I sat there until my shift ended. I quit the next day. I did not even finish the shift. I clocked out during my break and walked out to my car. I went to HR the next morning. I told them it was for personal reasons. They did not ask questions. They had me sign some paperwork. I left my badge and my headset and walked out. I do not know who or what that figure was. I do not know if it was real or if I was losing my mind. But I know I was not imagining the waving hand. I know I was not imagining the way it followed me from zone to zone. And I know I made the right decision to leave. Sometimes I wonder if it is still there, if it is following someone else now, if anyone else has seen it. I thought about reaching out to old co-workers, asking if they had noticed anything strange, but I never did. I did not want to sound crazy, and part of me did not want to know the answer. I still have dreams about that warehouse sometimes. Long aisles, fluorescent lights flickering, the scraping sound, the figure standing at the end of the row raising its hand. I wake up and check the locks on my doors. I tell myself it was nothing, but I do not really believe that. This is the final story. It is the one I think about the most. I was 31 when this happened. It was only a couple of years ago. I had been working as a night custodian at an office building downtown. It was a 10-story building, mostly law firms and financial companies, the kind of place where people wear suits and carry expensive briefcases. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 6 nights a week. I had Sunday off. I had a partner for the first couple of months, a guy named David. We would split the floors. He would do floors 1 through 5, I would do floors 6 through 10, and we would meet up around 4 a.m. to do the lobby together. But David quit in September. He got a better job. Daytime hours, more pay. After that, I was alone. The work was straightforward. Vacuum the carpets, empty the trash cans, wipe down the desks and kitchenettes, clean the bathrooms, mop the floors. Each floor took about 45 minutes if I did not rush. I would start at the top and work my way down. By 6:30 a.m. I would be finished. I would lock up the supply closet, turn off the lights, and go home. The building was always empty at night. Everyone left by 7 or 8 p.m. The latest I ever saw anyone was 9:30. The doors locked automatically at 9 p.m. After that, you needed a key card to get in. I had one. So did the security guard, but there was no security guard. The building used to have overnight security, but the management company cut the position to save money. Budget cuts. It was just me, alone in 10 floors of empty offices. I did not mind being alone. The building was quiet, peaceful, almost. I would put in headphones and listen to music while I worked. Podcasts sometimes, audiobooks. Sometimes I would take breaks and sit in one of the empty offices, looking out at the city. The view from the 10th floor was beautiful at night. You could see the whole downtown area, all the lights, the few cars still on the road, the buildings lit up against the dark sky. It felt like I had the entire city to myself. But then things started feeling different. Small things at first. I would finish cleaning a floor and move to the next one. And when I came back later to turn off the lights, something would be out of place. A chair pulled away from a desk. A door I had closed, standing slightly open. Trash in a bin I had already emptied. I assumed I was forgetting things. I was tired. I worked 6 nights a week, 8-hour shifts. It was easy to lose track. Then I started noticing the elevator. I would be on the 4th floor, vacuuming a conference room, and I would hear the elevator moving. The mechanical hum. The cables moving. The ding when it stopped. I would walk to the hallway and check the indicator lights. The elevator would be on the 7th floor, or the 9th floor, but I had not called it. I had not pressed any buttons. No one else was in the building. I checked the logs on my key card system every night. I was the only one who had entered that night. I mentioned it to the building manager when I saw him one morning. His name was Frank. He was an older man, maybe 65, who had been managing buildings for decades. I said, "I think the elevator is malfunctioning." He said he would have someone look at it. A technician came out a few days later. I was not there. I was asleep. But Frank told me the technician said the elevator was fine. He said it was probably just settling. Old buildings do that. The cables shift. The counterweights move. It was normal. I accepted the explanation. It made sense. But the elevator kept moving. I would be on one floor and I would hear it stop on another. I started tracking it. I kept a small notebook in my back pocket. I would write down the time and the floor. There was no pattern. Sometimes it would go to the 2nd floor. Sometimes the 8th. Sometimes it would move multiple times in one night, sometimes not at all. One night, I decided to test it. I was on the 5th floor, mopping a hallway. I heard the elevator stop on the 7th floor. I dropped the mop and ran to the stairwell. I climbed as fast as I could. My footsteps echoed in the concrete stairwell. By the time I got to the 7th floor, I was breathing hard. I pushed open the door and looked down the hallway. The elevator doors were closed. The hallway was empty. All the lights were on. I had not turned them on yet. I was not supposed to clean the 7th floor until later. I checked every office, every bathroom, every supply closet, every conference room. There was no one there. Nothing was out of place. I started feeling watched. I would be vacuuming, and I would get the overwhelming sense that someone was standing behind me. I would turn around. No one. I would be emptying a trash can, and I would hear a sound in the next room. A door closing. Footsteps. I would check. Nothing. I told myself it was the building settling. Old pipes. The heating system. The air conditioning. But it did not feel like that. It felt intentional. Then one night, I saw the light. I was on the 3rd floor, cleaning a conference room. I glanced out into the hallway, and through the stairwell windows I could see a light moving on the 10th floor. A faint glow, like a flashlight. Moving slowly from one end of the hallway to the other. My stomach dropped. I was supposed to be alone. I had already cleaned the 10th floor. I had turned off all the lights. I had locked all the supply closets. I had checked all the offices. I stood in the conference room. Frozen. I watched the light move. It went into one of the offices. The corner office. The biggest one. Then it came back out. It moved to another office, then another. It was searching for something. Methodically. Room by room. I thought about calling the police. But what would I say? I saw light. It could have been a reflection. A car passing by outside. Headlights shining through the windows at the right angle. It could have been anything. I tried to convince myself that was it, but the light kept moving. Deliberately. room by room, like someone was checking every office. I decided to go up there. I do not know why. Maybe I thought I could prove to myself it was nothing. Maybe I just needed to know. I took the stairs. I climbed slowly, quietly. My heart was pounding in my ears. When I reached the 10th floor, I opened the stairwell door and looked down the hallway. The lights were off. It was completely dark. I could not see the glow anymore. I stepped into the hallway. I stood there, listening. I could hear the hum of the ventilation system, the distant sound of traffic outside, a siren somewhere far away. Nothing else. I walked to the corner office where I had seen the light. I pushed the door open. It was empty. Dark. I checked the other offices. All empty. I checked the bathrooms, the kitchenette, the supply closet. There was no one there. No flashlight. No sign anyone had been there. I went back to the 3rd floor and finished my work. I tried to forget about it, but the next night, I saw the light again. Same floor. Same slow, methodical movement from room to room. I did not go up there that time. I just kept working. I told myself I was imagining things. Stress. Lack of sleep. I needed to take a break. Maybe request some time off. But then I started finding things. Small things. A coffee cup on a desk that had not been there before, still warm. I touched it. The ceramic was warm. Someone had used it recently. A chair that was pushed in when I knew I had left it pulled out. I specifically remembered leaving it pulled out because I had vacuumed around it. A bathroom stall door that was locked from the inside. I knocked. No one answered. I climbed over and unlocked it from the inside. The stall was empty, but the toilet seat was up. I always put them down. One night I found a jacket. It was draped over a chair in one of the offices on the 8th floor. I had cleaned that office an hour earlier. The chair had been empty. I remembered because I had wiped down the desk and the chair arms. The jacket was a dark windbreaker. It looked new, clean. I picked it up. The pockets were empty. There was no name tag, no identification, no business card. I took it to the lost and found box in the lobby. The next night it was gone, not from the lost and found. I checked. It was back in the office, on the same chair. I stopped cleaning the upper floors. I would do the first 5 floors and then leave. I told Frank I was not feeling well. He said that was fine. He said he understood. He said he would hire someone to help me, but no one ever came. Weeks went by. I kept asking. He kept saying he was working on it, but no one ever came. Then, about 2 weeks ago, something happened that made me quit. I was on the 2nd floor, mopping a hallway. It was around 3 a.m. I heard footsteps above me, on the 3rd floor. Slow, heavy footsteps, walking from one end of the building to the other. I froze. I listened. The footsteps stopped. Then they started again, coming toward the stairwell, coming down. I dropped the mop. The handle clattered on the floor. I ran to the elevator. I pressed the button. The elevator was on the 9th floor. I watched the numbers descend. 8th floor, 7th floor. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear them in the stairwell now. The door was 30 feet away. 6th floor, 5th floor. The footsteps stopped. I heard the stairwell door open. I did not look. I kept my eyes on the elevator. The elevator reached the 2nd floor. The doors opened. I stepped inside. I pressed the button for the lobby. The doors started to close. Just before they shut, I saw a figure step into the hallway. Tall, dark clothes. I could not see the face. The lighting was dim. The doors closed. The elevator descended. I stood there shaking. When the doors opened in the lobby, I ran. I did not lock up. I did not turn off the lights. I did not close the supply closet. I just left. I got in my car and drove home as fast as I could. I called Frank the next morning. I told him I quit. He asked why. I said personal reasons. He did not push. He just said okay. I think he knew. I think other custodians had quit before me for the same reason. He did not sound surprised. He just said he would mail me my last paycheck. And that was it. I have not been back to that building. I drive past it sometimes on my way to my new job. I work at a grocery store now, daytime hours, stocking shelves. I look up at the windows when I drive by. Sometimes I see lights on floors that should be empty. Sometimes I do not. I do not know if anyone else is working there now. I do not know if they have experienced the same things I did. I tell myself it was my imagination, that I was working too hard, sleeping too little, that old buildings make strange sounds, that shadows play tricks in dim lighting. But I do not really believe that. I believe someone or something was in that building with me. I believe it was watching me, following me, waiting for something. I do not know what it wanted. I do not know if it is still there. But I know I made the right choice to leave, and I know I will never work a night shift again, not in an office building, not in a warehouse, not anywhere I would be alone. Sometimes I think about calling Frank, asking him if anyone else has quit, asking him if anyone else has reported strange things. But I never do. I do not want to know. I do not want confirmation that what I experienced was real, because if it was real, then it might still be looking for me. I changed my phone number after I quit. I moved to a different apartment. I did not tell Frank where I was going. I did not leave a forwarding address. I just disappeared. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was overreacting. But I could not take the chance. Because sometimes, late at night, I wake up and hear footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Slow, heavy footsteps. And I lie there in the dark, holding my breath, waiting for them to pass. And they always do. They always pass by my door. But I wonder if one night they will stop. I wonder if one night I will hear a knock. Because I am not convinced I ever really was alone.